What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Chiss Ascendancy. This is episode 14. And what are we talking about?
If you watched an episode every day, you could watch one for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's true. You would never run out of material for 2 weeks. And in this crazy quarantine we're in, that wouldn't last too long. And I stayed up till 4 a.m. last night watching half the Waco series on Netflix.
Did you really watch Chapter 1?
We watched 3, right?
Yeah.
There's 6 of them?
Yeah.
So yeah, we got halfway through. I'm definitely going to watch the other half tonight.
Anyway, so today we're talking about...
Let's get political!
The last and most recent episode of Star Wars, The Clone Wars.
The Clone Wars. So we're in the last season, supposedly. Season 7, episode 9, I believe this one was?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And so...
2 arcs and a half.
Yes. And so, let me think. No, this must have been 10. Was it 10?
Episode 10, yeah.
All right, so we're off to a rough start, guys. This is Joe Exotic, but we're going to keep rolling. In episode 10, so this is named The Phantom Apprentice. Did you think this was about Ahsoka or Maul?
I think both. I think they are...
The Phantom Apprentices.
The both of them.
I never really... I know that they're called a Sith Apprentice, but I just never thought of them that way. You know what I mean? Just because the word isn't thrown around like it is as much with the Jedi.
I think of it a lot because Sidious uses it so much, especially in episode 3, where he's saying,
he does.
He's like, I would soon have a new apprentice, one far younger and more powerful,
and with greater hair.
Yeah, but no, I think about Sith Apprentices a lot.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, not like a lot in my sleeping, waking hours. I think of the Sith Apprentice.
Sith Apprentice. I think the reason that I know that Sidious, now that you pointed out, does say it in episode 3 in an actual Star Wars film, but
yeah, well, and he says it in episode 1 as well.
In my mind,
like, this is my apprentice right now.
Darth Maul. But I guess by the time that the rule of two is in effect, already, and so to me it's like Sith Master, Sith Lord. I don't know. It's kind of a weird. To me, an apprentice is almost like the one that's going to replace the one, like.
Yeah.
Dooku was an apprentice, and now he's a master, but not a master, but like a lord or whatever.
Sith master to be.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of weird. Anyways, so yeah, Phantom Apprentice, obviously, kind of pulling from Phantom Menace episode 1, but it's also talking about, Ahsoka's the apprentice that disappeared as well. And so, here's the thing: if you haven't watched the latest episode of Clone Wars, we're going all the way in, talking about it in depth today, and so. I guess we can do a spoiler-free review and just talk about the things that we liked for 2 or 3 minutes. So here's where we came from, okay? Clone Wars was saved a couple of years ago, and obviously we were stoked. I was texting you, I was texting my friend Zach Pachone, big Clone Wars fan, and I was like, we're doing it, it's back,
Yeah.
And then we didn't know what that meant. Multiple seasons? One season? Is it, I was really nervous they were going to do like one movie-long episode, like a 45-minute or hour-long episode, and be like, see, we saved it. All right, now shut up.
The pilot piece.
And so we found out we were getting one season left, and then it's going to be 12 episodes, and even though we speculated our little butts off, it was only going to be 3 story arcs that we already knew about. And pretty much all of those had been mapped out, and I was nervous that it wasn't going to be fresh and new feeling because we had already pretty much been told what was going on in a lot of these. Mm-hmm. But it's been really good. And so Monday, there was a man by the name of, I'm going to try not to butcher this name, but Gianni Eliotti, Aliotti. I'm just throwing that out there. He is the FX supervisor for the animation side of Lucasfilm. Yeah. And on Monday, he tweeted, I guess it's Monday, which means you're 5 days away, or 4 days away, or whatever, from the best episode of Clone Wars you've ever seen. And then he said, period, hold me to it. And I was like, wow, that is very brave. That's very, you're putting yourself out there. And Samuel made a good point. Even if you're a Rebels fan, if this comes out and it's,
If it's the best episode of the Clone Wars, it's the best episode of any Star Wars animated show.
Yeah.
And so there's just no competition. I think anybody who's seen them all would agree.
Yeah, and I think that Rebels has some really high points, but I think if this was just going to come out swinging and be the best Clone Wars, it's probably going to be the best animated episode we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then right after that, Sam Witwer said he had seen, maybe this was the next day, he said he had seen 3/4 of the arc, and he said it's probably the best thing we've ever done. So you got Sam Witwer, who I treasure, because... one, outside of Star Wars, he was that cool soldier from The Mist, the Stephen King movie.
Yeah, he got screwed.
He got the short end of the stick there, literally. Shink. And so,
poor guy.
So you got Sam Witwer comes into Star Wars to do motion capture and voiceover audio work for The Force Unleashed, which was kind of bringing Star Wars gaming back to the forefront from Battlefront 2 all the way back in Episode 3 days. And so I remember there being days, this is wild because it's so different now, but I remember there being days where I'd get home from school, throw my backpack on the ground, and my mom would be like, don't throw it. And I'd be like, I said it. And then I would run to the computer, and like the first thing I would do was check StarWars.com. What's the news? What's going on? Because we didn't have any social media, So I was like, what's the word? And so I'd get in there and I'd check StarWars.com. And I remember for a good chunk of time, there was, there's a video game coming out. It's The Force Unleashed.
Dude, do you remember... This is a complete sidetrack. Do you remember that Star Wars game on StarWars.com where you could be either Obi-Wan or Anakin and you could duel of the heroes?
But it was action figures?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just like Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. It was very... I think it was on the Star Wars Hasbro website. And it could be like, which one are you playing as?
They had that one, and they had like the Kessel Run where you're shooting in the Falcon, or they had the one where you were...
When we were growing up, we went to school probably like 3 or 5 miles from the place where our parents worked, and so there was a lot of times that they'd come pick us up, and then we'd just be at the office from 3 to 5 or 6 or 7 o'clock, and so there was a back room that had an extra computer, and we'd be like... All right, I'm moving on this time. All right, I'm Anakin. Because I think you could play at the same time because you had this guy can play with the arrows, this guy can play with the keyboard. Yeah. And the truth was, whoever had the arrows was going to win. Like, it's simple to go left, right, left, right, left, right. If you're like, I can reverse extra W. But yeah, Star Wars, they had a cool setup where you had all the figures that were available for Episode 3 and like a circular queue. So you could be like, have that one, have that one, have that one, need that one. That was pretty cool.
888.
Double 8.
Loathed entirely.
What are you, some kind of wild animal? So... What? So, anyway, so we played a lot of that. But, yeah, so I would come home, I would go, and I would see, jump on. Of course, I went to some news website because it's my dad's computer, and I'd be like, no, get that out of here, StarWars.com. I remember one time I made that the homepage, and my dad was like, hey... Who took it off the news? But anyways, I remember going on there, and for months, like up until the release of The Force Unleashed, and then afterward, it was like, check this out, because that was the main... It's weird because we live in a different time now, where there's constantly stuff coming out. There's constantly, like, even if it's not officially news, like Star Wars or Lucasfilm hasn't confirmed Rosario Dawson for Ahsoka yet. But we're still getting news about Star Wars, new things that are coming out. We're still getting news Mandalorian Season 3 has begun filming.
Well, the other difference
Can we get at least 5 or 10 seasons of Mandalorian?
Like, gaming-wise, is that games aren't just what you buy anymore. You know what I mean? Like, The Force Unleashed came out, and you had the Force Unleashed story arc, and that's what you had.
Yeah.
But now, like, for instance, with the latest Battlefront 2... they're constantly releasing updates. You get new heroes that you can download.
Yeah. There was it was basically
new types of conquest.
Heavily story motivated.
Right.
I don't even know if you could play Force Unleashed online.
No.
So
there's no PvP. There's no.
Now on the flip side, I've mentioned this the last 3 or 4 episodes in a row. But on the flip side, the toys that were coming out from Force Unleashed and Legos and stuff. Lego has always been really good about keeping up with what's coming out. Like they have Mandalorian Legos. They just released the Razor Crest. But like the Hasbro, the 3 3/4 inch figures, like Force Unleashed came out, and you had Starkiller, you had Ram Koda, you had all those guys.
A new unique skin for every single mission.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of material.
Yeah, and you had the freaking Toys R Us exclusive, RIP Toys R Us. Yeah, the Toys R Us exclusive
There's
battle
one alive
packs.
in the Galleria.
Yeah, but it's only open like...
It's not open now, probably.
I think it's... Well, yeah. I think they only opened up for like a month before and after Christmas or something. I knew it was like a seasonal thing. But anyways...
What's the point?
So, they had like... You could have your regular Starkiller that you could get kind of anywhere. But then you had Toys R Us was like, you can get Raxus Prime Starkiller that has the freaking dope...
2020
Starkiller. You know,
face covered.
Breathe. And then you had one of the coolest Darth Vaders.
Come to die.
One of the coolest Darth Vaders you could ever get because they had battle damage from when him and Starkiller fight.
Authentic battle damage.
You could authentic battle damage. You could take like 2/3 of his mask off, and it was cool because you could see his freaking eye and stuff like that. But anyways, there was just I don't remember we were talking about StarWars.com But so there's so much stuff that's coming out. That's what it was. Is there's just so much material now. So it's really cool to see that happening. But basically, they said that this is the best Clone Wars we're ever going to see, and we've tried not to do. You know, we even considered for a while every week until Clone Wars is done, we'll review Clone Wars. And we said, well, let's not do that. It's gonna, let's review an arc or let's review whatever. Mm-hmm. But we were texting the other day, and it was like, they're claiming this is the best episode ever. We can't not address it. That's what everyone's going to be talking about. And we don't have a daily podcast. We don't have daily material, and so this had to be the venue. So, okay, out of 10, what do you give to Phantom Apprentice?
I mean, without comparing it to any other episodes, 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, even comparing it, like, there's going to be areas that it's... Just like any movie or show, there's going to be areas that, well, I like this better, but I like this better.
Right.
You know? Qui-Gon wasn't in this one.
Right.
So, I hold that against you. No, but yeah, 10 out of 10 for sure.
Yeah.
I feel I'm in a weird space as a Star Wars fan because I'm not the guy that's like with not the twins, but the sisters that Ahsoka was with for that arc or whatever. Like, it was cool to have a reason to see Maul again, but I wasn't getting a whole lot out of those episodes from them.
Yeah,
as characters.
On what I've seen other people say, and I saw this, like, I thought, like, I've gotten to the point in life where I assume, like, maybe I'm the crazy one, you know? But I saw a bunch of other people who were like, this is garbage, and I was like, oh, thank God.
I've seen other people on the other side, though, that are like, I don't know, it feels like it's weaponized, and it's like, well, if you can't appreciate this, maybe because you're and it gets political or whatever crap.
Yeah. And
it's like, no, it's because I am bleeding from the eyes for Darth Maul.
Right. Well,
get him on the screen!
Just along the lines of I read something that's like, how does it feel to be the same gender as Donald Trump? And somebody's like, how does it feel to be the same gender as Karen?
And Carol Baskins.
But I'm like, that's such a stupid argument. You know what I mean? That's the pinnacle of sexism.
Yeah.
So it's like, whatever ovaries aside, I just hate this person's personality. I don't care what they are. I don't care what species they are. It could be a freaking asexual Ithorian, and I would hate him to death.
Yeah, I didn't... Oh. It was just... Here's the thing. We were coming in, and we didn't know what I think... Part of it was we didn't know what that arc was going to hold. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Turns out it was about nothing.
So
held about nothing.
The coolest thing, I remember texting Samuel and being like, "You have to watch because Darth Maul's at the end." Sorry, I spoiled it for you. It's the coolest thing that happens.
He's like, "Here's a little sliver of hope. Hang in there."
So, but that's the thing is like,
if you eat this piece of broccoli, you can have an M&M.
You know. I remember, like, okay, I don't try to be a hater. Like, I try to see things objectively.
Right.
But
I gave it a shot, and I was like,
watch the Phantom Apprentice, or watch Old Friends Not Forgotten, episode 9, last week's episode, and then go and watch any of the other arc and be like, oh, this was kind of bad. Like, and I get it. Like, it's to, Dave Filoni came out, and of course, I mean, if you're a creator, I'm sure it's very offensive when people don't like what you've created or they don't think it's as good. But he came out and said, basically, this storyline, I'm going to butcher this quote because I haven't thought about it that much since just this moment. But he basically was saying we had to establish Ahsoka as a character outside of the Jedi.
Right.
We had to establish her as a character outside of, and especially this close after she walks away.
And I respect that idea.
Yeah.
But I would have taken any other route.
The thing that's crazy is, you have these sisters, one that, both of them are in over their head.
Yeah.
And one that just doesn't know it. And then you've got the younger sister who they're sitting at a table with Black Sun, okay? One of the most dangerous, vicious crime syndicates in the history of the galaxy. They were so vicious that they were made canon in the Clone Wars. Like, they were... Because there's a lot of Legends material out there that it's like, this is kind of tacky. Or this doesn't make sense. Or this doesn't fill the storyline. And they were like, you know what would be sick? Bringing these guys back. They're cutthroat, Yeah. And then they're going to be sitting at the table with the freaking Godfather. You got... hey, what are you doing? Where's the spice? At the end of the table. And then you got freaking Rocket Man from Lego Movie that's like, spaceship! Like, she's like, fastest ship, spaceship! And I was like, shut up. Shut up, Mimsy. So,
Shut up, Mimsy.
Anyways, 10 out of 10 for me, this episode. And I really liked it. So, I'll say that there's a huge... I felt like every area that they touched on, they did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the action was amazing. The acting was amazing from the characters.
Right.
From the voice actors. I felt like it was drama. And the thing to me that made it, and we kind of talked about this before recording, but the thing that really stood out to me was I felt like I was just smack dab in the middle of Star Wars. Right. Where there are little tendrils touching everything else.
Well, and I remember saying, like, maybe 5 minutes into the episode, I was like, man, I want to watch episode 3 so bad right now.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
The connections in this episode to specifically Revenge of the Sith was awesome. Yeah. And I know that there's little things that people are nitpicky over the timing and stuff. Couldn't care less.
It gave even more depth to the things going on there.
It gave more depth to the things going on elsewhere, because they're super important. But, like, they did a great job, and I mentioned this. One of the things that is hard about having different eras all over Star Wars that are going on at the same time, like, as far as material, like, we just got finished, in the grand scheme of things, we just got finished with Rebels. Then we just got finished with the prequels. Then sequels. Then now we're back in Clone Wars. So I know where everybody's going to end up. Yeah. And I still am like, oh no! Right. And that is success, because if I know Ahsoka has to make it out of this arc alive, she has to.
I've read the book.
She's in material 20 years down the road. She's just got cast for the Mandalorian. Well,
and at the same time, it's like I know Maul is alive at least for Solo. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So when you see that, if you're not a fan, I guess, then you can go, well, they're gonna make it. Yeah. But they did an amazing job of pulling you in, and I felt like it was... They're obviously, like you said, you can't pick one episode that you love the most. But to me, this episode was absolutely the best at just
what it meant to do.
Everything else in Star Wars, it did an amazing job.
For sure.
A few thoughts before we give the warning and then just jump all the way into the spoilers.
Oh man, I was ready.
Well, you don't have to. I was just saying if you had something else you wanted to say topically.
No, well, I guess it's just, for me, there are things that I have thought myself, about just how offense in Revenge of the Sith would have affected those characters. And this episode gave life to those thoughts that I had. Just different perspectives of Revenge of the Sith, even though it's like, almost 3 hours, like, it's still a very fast-paced movie. Like, there are a lot of things happening very quickly. Yeah. And one of the things about Star Wars that I think a lot of people don't really appreciate is that even though it looks like they're place to place to place to place to place, space travel takes time. So,
I still don't understand that concept.
There's a... We can talk about it later. But there's time that it takes.
Yep.
And these events aren't happening back to back to back to back to back, even though that's what it's portrayed as, Mm-hmm. And so...
Yeah, they can't be like
there's processing time for those
done on course,
individuals.
now back to Mandalore.
Right.
There's time.
And so, yeah, I just thought it was cool that it kind of if they made an animated show that took place, for instance, during Rise of Skywalker, it would have given life to those moments in between all the big events.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And seeing what's going on elsewhere in the galaxy.
I felt like the sequel trilogy, and I'm not going to go too far down this rabbit trail, but I feel like it would have served it well for it not to have all taken place so quickly.
Mm.
Like episode 7 and 8 all take place 2 days, 3 days. Then you have a year gap between 8 and 9, but then the events of 9 take place in a matter of a few days as well.
Yeah.
So
I don't think it's just kind of response to the impending.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
it's just crazy because Pablo Hidalgo, the guy that's the story master for Lucasfilm, said that Revenge of the Sith takes place over a span of 10 days.
Yeah. But it looks like 3 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
I mean, that's a week and a half. A lot can happen in a week and a half.
Yep.
So I just thought it was cool to see, even in characters that are really well established, to see those things. For me, that was very cool. Mm-hmm. Also, to see the events taking place even more in depth from a dark side perspective was very cool, because most of it is focused on the light side perspective.
Mm-hmm.
We're mostly seeing the Jedi Council uncover these things in episode 3.
Yes.
And we're seeing that discovery, and we already know because we've seen Palpatine on the throne.
Mm-hmm.
We know that he's pulling the strings, so those things are already kind of assumed. So the movie story is focused on the light side, uncovering that aspect of it. So to see a dark side version discovery was very cool.
Yeah. So we're getting in there. Let's. If you haven't seen it, you really need to go see it. It's been out since Friday. This is Monday. You need to figure it out. But here's your 5-second warning before we jump in. Ready? You've been warned. Here we go. Let's do this thing. That was one of the main takeaways from episode 10 to me. Mm-hmm. Was it's weird because I hate to say this, but I think I've put Legends and Canon in a box in my head. Mm. And I don't want to do that. It's all one thing to me. And maybe there are areas that it does. To me, there's the Legacy of the Force book series, which is my favorite Star Wars long book series. And Jason Solo still exists in my mind, even though that's basically Kylo Ren's was his replacement in a way. But in that same way, what?
Ben.
Oh yeah, that was so weird. I was like, but that's Luke's kid's name. It was weird to me that I know that, Darth Bane, for instance, says he has a vision of what the Sith can look like. Mm-hmm. But to me, when you read that, it's more of a dream. Okay, well, that's another word that's double used.
Yeah.
He has an idea. It's his vision.
Yeah.
Does it make
something
sense?
that he's projecting, not something
I never thought that the Force would give a dark side user a leg up.
Well, and here's the thing that
when the Force Awakens in Rey, it's kind of to me, it's been very much portrayed, especially since Disney took over, that the natural order of things is a light side to help others through the Force. And people who use the dark side, for instance, the bleeding of the crystal to have a red lightsaber, it very much seems like you bend the Force to your will.
Order. Yeah.
And so for the Force to reach out to Maul and give him a vision of things to come, and pretty much, this is going to sound strange, but he is more in tune with the Force than anyone in the Jedi Order at this time.
Okay, so
think about that. Because the shroud, maybe because he's underneath the shroud of the dark side.
But I have answers. I have thoughts.
Go.
So, one, we see that in the Mortis arc, there's really an embodiment of the light and the dark side in the son and the daughter.
Figuratively, yeah.
So,
I mean, literally too, but yeah.
Yeah, but you see that, and so you kind of, now think of them more, it's like personification. You think of them as entities as opposed to like just things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at the same time...
Coming from a Christian background, though, it's really hard.
I mean, I've also read a lot of mythology, so...
Yeah, yeah. For me, it's hard because I'm like, the Force is a giant, you know... It's like a God entity out there. Yeah. So to me, obviously, being a Christian...
Right.
There is no darkness in God. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's weird. I know it's not the same. I know it's a different concept, but it's hard for me to differentiate.
To further this, I think about the Master and Apprentice book, where people are constantly getting on Dooku's case and getting on Qui-Gon's case, saying that to seek out a vision from the Force is a path to the dark side. So I think when Maul said, I had a vision of the future, that's the first thing that I thought of. Really? Was that he's in the dark side and he's seeing the future.
So because in Master Apprentice they talk about if you're seeking out visions,
and they talk about like that's how the mystics lost their way.
People do that because they want to
be in control.
They want to have the freaking 11/22/63 effect, right? Where they know what's going to happen. Right. Great book by Stephen King. If you haven't seen it, there's a series on Hulu. You can watch that as well. But yeah, there's that effect of I already know, therefore it gives me the leg up, which is the pathway to power.
And you see exactly that happening with Maul, where he says, "I've had a vision of the things to come, and we can thrive in this chaos." Mm-hmm. I thought that was the coolest thing, that you see Maul pulling all these machinations and strings, but he's finally got so many pieces in play that he's in command of that he is able to now capitalize on the things that he knows are going to happen. Because he knows there's going to be a great discord in the galaxy, and while that's happening, while things are in the air, he can pluck some of them.
Yeah. The weird thing to me was, it's kind of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you got the light side, okay, and I'm gonna muddy the waters a little bit, okay. But you got the light side, you have the dark side. On the light side, you've got the Jedi. Even though they're flawed, the Republic, even though it's significantly flawed. On the dark side, you clearly got Darth Sidious / Palpatine pulling the strings, creating the Clone Wars, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Now you have Sidious, who is grooming Anakin to become Darth Vader, and he's the queen puzzle or the chess piece. Mm-hmm. You know, even though Palpatine's the king and he has all the power, Anakin's the one that's like, I can go diagonal, I can go straight, I can do, like, he's the one that's going across the galaxy making these big moves. He's the one that takes out all the Padawans. He's the one that takes out, you know, the Separatist leaders and all that stuff. So
just think about how many Jedi he killed specifically when he went to the Jedi Temple. You know what I mean? Like,
so
that wasn't all the clones.
It's weird because you have that, and Maul has a vision, whether he's seeking it or is given to him. To me, when it's like, I don't know. To me, when it's like I had a vision, it's almost like you received it. But again, does that just come from my background? I don't know. But
well, I think it's just all right. So to think about like Empire, Luke had a vision, but he wasn't like looking for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's weird because
he was just aware because he was connected to the Force.
Maul does not want to rule the galaxy. I don't think. But
I don't think he would say no if anybody offered it to him.
Well, yeah, that's true. So Maul's whole point, the big twist in this episode is Maul's talking to Ahsoka in the throne room. And he says, basically, he unpacks every dadgum thing. Yeah. He says everybody, like, Ahsoka had never heard the name Sidious before. And he tells her, you know, you guys are idiots. Like, Dooku's in charge. I've never been in charge. We're all pawns. Sidious is the one pulling the strings. And she was like, you know, he said, join me. And she said, to save the Republic. And he said, the Jedi's downfall is already going to happen. The Republic's downfall is at hand. But we can defeat Sidious. And she says, and here's what's crazy. He does the whole Kylo Ren thing. Puts his hand out, join me. Together, he's like, I'm an apprentice that was cast aside. You're an apprentice that was cast aside. And she said, well, I walked away. And he goes, yeah, but you're cast aside. That's why you walked away. Like, he's basically reading her mail. And then says, together we can defeat Darth Sidious. Yeah. And she says, to save the Republic. And he's like, no, just to defeat Sidious. You know, that's the greater goal here. Yeah. And which it is. Like, the Republic's already so corrupt at this point. Mm-hmm. You know, you still think of them as the good guys when you're like, when I'm rewatching the prequels, I'm still like, here come the good guys, the Republic. But if the Republic had won the war, which I guess it did technically, we saw what it was already becoming the bones of the Empire.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it's like it's just Palpatine winning. You know what I mean? Like, it's
and Maul sees that.
Even though it's very real, it's just an illusion.
Yeah, and Maul sees that, and he says, the only goal is to defeat the only plan. Mm-hmm. You know, that's not a quote, but he says that's the plan. It's coming to pass. And he says the dark side is at its strongest right now. I think that's what's making him so strong, is because he leans into it, you know? So she says, I'll join you. So then freaking Ahsoka Tano, who's like the light side characters, you know, always does the right thing, walks away from the Jedi, you know, council and all that stuff because she feels like they're not the Jedi that they should be. Like, she has a high conscience. Mm-hmm. And she's going to join Maul to defeat Sidious, but she has one question that has to be answered. And he says, okay, ask. And she says, you know, what do you want with Anakin Skywalker? And he's like, I mean to kill him. Yeah. Because he is the main piece.
Yeah. And that's what I thought was so interesting, is that he put so much heavy emphasis on Anakin. That, like, without Anakin, Palpatine couldn't have done it. You know, that he was the linchpin.
And what's crazy is Maul, whose singular focus for this whole time has been Kenobi, is ready to let that slide. He wanted to lure Kenobi back to Mandalore.
Think he wants to kill Kenobi again, but he just wanted Kenobi because Anakin comes with Kenobi. He basically says Anakin rides Kenobi's coattails, and wherever Kenobi goes, Anakin follows. Yeah. And the goal was, they know it's Maul. They're going to send Kenobi because he can, you know, they're the rivals, so let's send him. And Anakin will be the 1-2 punch that the Republic says, well, if Obi-Wan can best him, Anakin and Obi-Wan will destroy him. Right. And his whole goal is, bring Kenobi here, we'll deal with that another day, to kill Skywalker, to defeat Sidious. And for a moment, as Anakin is sliding towards the dark side, he's killed Dooku at this point. So he's already falling. You know, the Tusken crap has already happened obviously. He knows about, you know, at this point, think about this, he already knows about his kids. Right. He's already seriously having issues with Padme, you know, and her dying. He's already killed Dooku. Yeah. He's already been assigned. Talk a little bit about freaking what the whole, you know, text message or FaceTime with Obi-Wan. He impacts a lot of Episode 3 stuff. So it's almost like if Maul he's just kind of out there, right? You got the Jedi who are good, you have the Sith who are bad, and it's almost like he's willing to just serve alongside a Jedi to defeat the Sith just because it's Sidious. It's a weird thing, and that weird balance is one of the best parts about the episode. Yeah. I thought it was interesting to see Kenobi in this episode because he's going through so much personally. He's just gone through this rescue with the Chancellor. Mm-hmm. He's already having his concerns about Anakin. They've already had the discussion where Anakin really was upset with him in the council because they asked him to spy on Palpatine. That's already happened. Mm-hmm. Like, that's one of the hardest conversations Kenobi has in Episode 3.
I thought they did an amazing job animating him with his hood up to kind of let you know what the timeline was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's his look. That's his.
That's his. I'm hiding right now. Yeah. Here's what's going on.
And I just thought it was interesting to see Kenobi view Dooku as a key to getting to Sidious. Yeah. Because
I had never thought of that. I always knew he was important. Right. But I guess I was listening to another YouTuber this morning, and they're saying I was so focused always on Dooku being a catalyst for Anakin's fall, but he's also a major loose end for Sidious.
Well, and you got to think about it from the council's point of view, right? Everybody that's in the council, which is now Anakin, knows that they don't know what's going on. So they're grasping at straws, trying to find any way they can to get a glimpse into the dark side. What would be the most accessible portal except the person who is the figurehead for the dark side right now. They know he's not really in charge, but he's as in charge as someone can be that they can point a finger at.
But Obi-Wan says, here's what the council suspects.
Mm-hmm.
So the crazy thing is, in episode 2, when Obi-Wan's in that cool floating jail thing, and Dooku unpacks the whole plan.
Yeah.
Which that's an interesting episode concept of what would have happened if Obi-Wan trusted him. Was Dooku recruiting the way that Palpatine recruited?
Yeah, Dooku's a manipulator.
Yeah. And I agree. I'm just saying it's an interesting thought. But Obi-Wan says, I'll tell you what the council suspects about this Sidious. But they don't know anything. Mm-hmm. And is, like you said, based on Dooku's history, he's a freaking wordsmith. He's the Count of Sereno. Like, he's got that comeuppance to him already.
He's not just a powerful Force user. He's a politician.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him dangerous.
Yeah. And so, imagine, the person who can convince you to do the craziest things, also Dark Lord of the Sith.
Right.
And is there really a Darth Sidious?
Mm-hmm.
Or was he the master and Maul was the apprentice? Like, they don't know.
Yeah.
And so, that's why I make the point that, in a weird way, Maul has come so far. Like, think about Maul in episode 1, and he's just a devil-looking guy to scare the kids and to sell toys.
Yeah. Well, he was a loose cannon, and it's not canon now, but in the Plagueis novel, Plagueis talks to Sidious about how Maul's biggest downfall is going to be that he's just reckless. He doesn't think before he goes into something. Mm-hmm. And that trial through insanity, when he's on, it's not Raxus Prime, but I always think of Raxus Prime.
When he becomes
going through that crucible makes him, and it literally recreates him, mm-hmm. that he is forged into a new type of being, mm-hmm. Both literally and figuratively. And that's now the Maul that we're seeing. Mm-hmm. The one that has had all the training and expertise, but now also has the experience and the motivation, to cause him to take pause and to look ahead mm-hmm. now, because he doesn't have anybody telling him what to do. Mm-hmm. He's pulling it out of the air.
It's just wild to me, because if you'd have asked me even 4 or 5 months ago, during the events of Revenge of the Sith, because we knew that Maul was alive because of Solo, like you said, and Rebels, who has not more powerful, because you can just be more powerful. That's stronger as far as fighting or whatever. Not who's going to win in a one-on-one, but who has a stronger connection to the Force, be it light side or dark. And you asked me, who has a stronger connection to the Force in episode 3, Maul or Obi-Wan? Maul or Yoda, Maul or Mace Windu, mm-hmm. I would have answered light side characters all the way. But it feels like after he completely unpacks every single thing, part of it's an inside scoop, but part of it is like he calls out Anakin, mm-hmm. and nobody else saw it. Like, even Obi-Wan, who's the closest, who has the most reservations, never goes to the council and says something's wrong. When I figure this out. I mean, think about it.
Part of that would be the fact that everybody in the Jedi Council would have assumed that they knew Anakin too well. You know what I mean? You don't suspect the people that are closest to you.
But part of that also is there's that intuition that the Force gives you. There's that knowing. There's that feeling of, yes, I'm in an X-wing and I have a targeting computer. I have a computer that is for targeting, mm-hmm. but the Force is telling me to trust in it to blow up this Death Star. And that same vibe, that same energy, whatever term you want to use, should have been warning them about Anakin. And Mace Windu this whole time is like, I'm not sure. And growing up, we were such Anakin fans, I was like, Mace Windu just needs to get off Anakin's back. Turns out freaking Mace was right this whole time.
Yeah.
But you've got Yoda.
Well, and you've
got Obi-Wan. To me, it's just like, this episode shows that Maul's connection, and maybe it's because there's not a bias there for Anakin. I totally agree. But there's something to be said for the blindness that assigns Anakin to the council. Whether it's for politics to placate him, or whether because they're blind enough to fully trust him in this time. But we're about 45 minutes away from killing a room full of kids. And Maul is the only one, including Ahsoka, who is arguably, maybe not closer than Obi-Wan, but she's a close second.
Well, here's the thing. Everybody on the council's got the good guy complex. They've got the Luke Skywalker that says they're still good and I can change him. Mm-hmm. Maul's willing to accept the worst of people. You know what I mean? He's willing to say, yeah, I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, everybody else is like, no, not Anakin. He could never.
Mm-hmm.
Maul's like, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe.
So, I don't know. I was just blown away by Maul's character. I know when Rise of Skywalker came out, I said Kylo Ren is the most complete character through a trilogy. And I know it's not within a trilogy, but Maul's character is getting there.
Yeah. Well, and it's just, I don't know, it's just cool to see that.
Granted, Maul's had a lot more screen time.
Yeah.
If you had, an episode and a full series and another series about Kylo, I'm sure we would get more stuff. Yeah. But, man, he just goes up and up and up and up and up on my characters list. But the depth there is so crazy. So what's the what's the overall takeaway? What's the highs and the lows for you from the episode? And what episodes in your mind does it compete with for that top spot? And I totally agree. People ask me what's my favorite Star Wars, and my first initial reaction is always Empire Strikes Back. It's just always been my favorite. Part of that's because of Boba Fett. Part of that's because I love the Battle of Hoth. Who doesn't love an AT-AT? Mm-hmm. But then I'm like, but dang, the Ewoks, Endor, the Emperor, You got Jabba's palace in the beginning of Episode 6. All those cool aliens. But then you've got the initial Star Wars with the cantina scene. Who doesn't love that? Mm-hmm. So it's hard because there's things I love about every single one of them.
Right.
So I get that with the Clone Wars, but what are episodes? And I'm not, you don't have to say it's this season, it's this whatever. Mm-hmm. But what are a handful that just off the top of your noggin compete with the Phantom Apprentice? Because to me, it's shot up straight to right up there.
Really easy for me to pick, and it would be the Mortis arc.
Okay.
And the last few episodes of the Lost episodes.
Mm-hmm. With Yoda.
Because it just gives so much insight into the Force itself.
Yeah.
Those are just things that I had always wanted to know more about, so they answered a lot of my personal questions. Mm-hmm. And that's why, for me, I really connect with those. At the same time, it could be said that the Phantom Apprentice did that in a different way. As opposed to giving insight into the Force itself, it shows how users interact with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You just kind of see surface stuff where you can kind of read between the lines, but to see Maul casually explaining, the process that he's going through,
mm-hmm.
I think it's just another level of insight that we have, especially into dark side users, which we don't get a lot of, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, dark side users, it's usually like you have initially Maul,
mm-hmm.
he's just a bad guy. Look at him, he looks like the freaking devil. Or you have a Dooku, which wasn't really explained super well in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have Sidious, who's just a bad guy.
Yep.
Like we're just now, from Dooku Jedi Lost and from Master and Apprentice, we're just now getting some unpacking there.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I've said to you before that a dark side user feels like they're manipulating by the Force, but if somebody looks at it objectively, they're being manipulated by the dark side. They're being used as the means to the end that the dark side wants to achieve.
And the only person who really has control over it is Palpatine.
Right. But at the same time, his end goal is the goal of the dark side of the Force. So who's using who, right?
Yeah, that's
true.
But
it's interesting to see Maul taking a lead from the Force, because you don't see that very much in a dark side user.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see him doing that while the light side is blinded. It's just that dichotomy that's really interesting.
It's weird, man.
That it's like
it's weird because it makes you like Star Wars. To me, the good guys are always going to end up winning. There was never a moment where the First Order was going to take over the galaxy at the end of Episode 9, and Kylo Ren was going to, put on a full Vader costume and be like, "See, told you the whole time.
Yeah,
Grandpa loves me." That was never going to happen. Their good guys were always going to win. Like, that's just how it works. That's just how Star Wars works. It's good versus evil. Good has to triumph. That's classic storytelling. So when you have that, maybe Clone Wars is the first thing that ends that way. I know Revenge of the Sith ends that way, right. But we knew...
Well, it has to.
We had 4, 5, 6 coming, which it did well. But, I don't know, it definitely feels weird that the Force is able to communicate with Maul much more right now than it's able to communicate with...
Right. Well, and it's because there's no inhibitions.
There's no shroud. So, that's just wild, man. I don't know. I thought that the fight scene was amazing.
Yeah.
I had never considered that you could use mocap technology for an animated show. I know that that's what they do for video games, like Force Unleashed, like we talked about earlier.
Just never.
But it just
had that line of reasoning.
They've never done it that I know of, and so to see, one of the best fights ever is obviously Sidious versus Maul and Savage. Mm-hmm. That was dope.
Which takes place in that same room, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, Maul has just done some crazy crap on Mandalore, but then you have that going on at the same time. This fight this is the best looking fight we've ever seen.
It was the most physically realistic duel that we see in the Clone Wars.
It was a perfect combination of physically real looking because of the motion capture, but still able to do crazy animation stuff.
Right.
So, I'm going out on a limb here. Maybe this, objectively, goes down as one of the best fights ever in Star Wars because of that combination.
Well, I think that's what Stan Witwer was driving at.
And here's the thing. Think about this. Like, I loved Rise of Skywalker. But there's that fight scene on the Death Star wreckage where Rey's grasping at straws. She's exhausted mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever. Kylo, to me, is being shown to be way stronger than her in the Force at this point. And maybe it's because he's just committed to this. At this point, he's still committed to one line. And she's kind of divided, doesn't know what to do. But think about this. There are moments in that fight where the music is like... You know? And it's like... and I know that it's to show her... it's to show her emotional baggage, too. I get that.
Yeah.
But dadgummit, there was a honeycomb at the top of Mandalore with beams that were this wide, and Ahsoka and Maul were fighting back and forth.
I thought it was cool that at the end of the throne room portion of the duel, you see Ahsoka a little out of breath.
She's a little out of breath, and then she has a moment where she kicks...
that was right after she kicks him out the window.
She kicks Maul, and it was just... The animation was so cool when he goes through the window, but he's still holding onto a saber, so you have, like, the goofy-shaped hole, like... and he
with
jumps
the lightsaber
out.
burns.
Yeah, that was really dope. I was happy with the duel, and here's why. I was talking to Officially Star Wars on Instagram, shout out, and he ran a poll on his story on Instagram, and it said, "Who wins in this fight, Ahsoka or Maul?" And I'm voting Maul. Like, I'm trying to double tap as fast as I can to see if I can get 2 votes in there, because it's obvious to me who's more powerful. But Ahsoka's a fan favorite, right? So she had like 67% of the vote versus 33% of the vote. And I messaged him, I was like, this is ridiculous. This is freaking ridiculous. And we had talked about this. Maul is at his peak right now.
Right.
His vision's clear. In this episode, he shows he is not blinded by Kenobi right now. Mm-hmm. We'll get back to it. Don't worry. We're going to freak out in the desert about it still. But right now, there are bigger fish to fry. Well, and we're still in a place to be able to attack.
Right, that shows how much clarity he has right now.
Yeah.
You know,
like, I think towards when you see Maul in Rebels, he's down on his luck. And he's like, but I could still kill Kenobi.
Right.
You know, like, he talks about, if Vader gets here, I cannot defeat him one-on-one.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty ballin'. But at this point, he still has the resources. He's still powerful enough. He's still, it's 20 years earlier, so he's 20 years younger. There's enough distraction and chaos going on, like you're talking about, that he can try to
I thought there was
pull some stuff in.
That he was like, let's just take advantage of what we can while we
He's
can.
in that box. The fan is under him. There's money going everywhere. And he's like, while this fan is on, I'm going to grab some of this cash.
Yeah.
That's where Maul's at right now. And it was just, I felt like Ahsoka's just got our lightsabers back. Mm-hmm. Maul's been waiting for this, he's never not ready to just go for it.
Yeah.
And so I was happy with the fact that Maul was like, he's not trying to kill Ahsoka. Mm-hmm. He just wants to he wants to kill Anakin. He wants to defeat Sidious. That's all he's thinking about. If he has to kill Ahsoka along the way, whatever. And by the end of the episode, when he is captured, it's there's a beam that's falling almost vertically down at this point. They're weighing each other down. Maul has bested Ahsoka. And for a split second, I feel like he slips up. He could have just left. Mm-hmm. But for a split second, he's like, okay, I'm just going to kill this chick because she's super annoying. Mm-hmm. He's tired of being followed. And, you know, whatever happens where she kicks him or whatever, and between Ahsoka and, two or three or four Republic gunships, they capture him. And I felt like there was never a moment where he was on the ropes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There are times that you see a fight and one fighter's winning the whole fight, and then they just get clipped on the chin and they lose the fight. Mm-hmm. And it sucks, but that's just the way fights go sometimes. I did not want to see a fight where Ahsoka bested Maul, like, just outright beat him. I was not going to accept that. And I feel like we got the fight that we wanted. I felt like he was very much in control, very much dominant, and there were 2 or 3 mistakes that he made that were really quick, but it cost him.
Right.
You know?
Well, I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit for something that I said when we were watching it, but I was like, what Sidious is to the galaxy at this point in Star Wars.
Yeah, you made a really good point.
Maul is to Mandalore. He's calling the shots on both ends.
Yeah.
He's in the throne room with Bo-Katan and Ahsoka, and he's got his folks out there fighting. He's like, maybe one of you guys should attend to that. Yeah. You know, he's instructing both sides of the war, and he's totally in control.
Well, and he totally calls the Mandalorians out on their desire just to fight because they have nothing else to do.
When he calls them, he needs an army, and he says, "Hey, you can die in battle," and they're like, "Shoosh, yeah. Where do I sign?"
Yeah, and he looks at them, and he's basically distracting them from him trying to talk Ahsoka into. Because if she would have said, "Okay, let's do this thing," Anakin's kind of a weirdo. Let's go kill him and let's defeat Sidious. They would have left together, and the clones and the Mandalorians could have just died off. Who cares?
Right. Well, and it's like he knows that eventually the clones are going to turn on the Jedi anyway, so either side is going to serve his purposes willingly or not.
Right. And so he says, so blissfully ignorant. Mm-hmm. And I was like, he knows what's going on. He knows what the freak is happening. But anyways, for me, I agree. Mortis arc, really, really great. It's one of those that you can go and rewatch all the time. I love the thrill of Five's arc, because every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, they're going to bust this guy. Mm-hmm. Of course they don't. And then, the Living Force stuff between Yoda and Qui-Gon and the Wills and all that stuff. That's the deepest it goes.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, it has not escaped my notice that my favorite story arcs involve Qui-Gon. But, you know, all the good things do.
So, I'm very happy with where we're progressing because we have 2 episodes. And the beautiful thing is when a streaming service puts out an episode, they're not limited by commercial time and time slot and whatever. So it can be like, you asked for it, episode 12, May the 4th, Happy Star Wars Day. This Clone Wars is an hour long. Right. They could do that. Not that they will, but they could. I'm sure if we check IMDb, it probably already has the minutes up there or whatever. I will be blissfully ignorant until we watch it. But it was up there, man. I think episode. As far as all the connections to all of other Star Wars, maybe that's what it's best at.
Yeah.
And that's what Star Wars needs right now, is to remind everybody that Star Wars is as Star Wars does.
Anything that can be added to Star Wars and make it feel more complete is something that's well done.
That's art.
Because it's already such a cohesive unit.
It's overall. A very saturated 30 or 40 years.
Right. And so to have something that's brand new, but at the same time fits perfectly into something that's been around for a long time.
Fits perfectly. It adds depth to 2 or 3 or 4 characters that everybody knows everything about. Mm-hmm. You know, there were things that happened here that I was like, Maul is a different level right now. You know, I'm on my way driving over here. Just picked up our drinks. I'm getting ready to pull into the driveway. And I'm thinking, where is Maul on my list right now? Because last night's episode changed things.
Yeah, it's a game
That's how big of a deal it is to me.
Yeah.
By last night's, I meant this morning at 3 a.m. after we stayed up ready to watch it. So it's up there, man. And I cannot wait to see. What's beautiful is, even though it's going to be sad because it's going to take us away from Clone Wars because they're going to wrap it up. But the 1st of May, next Friday, will be episode 11. And then just 1, 2, 3 days later on May the 4th, on a Monday, they're airing episode 12, just 3 days later. They're not waiting for Friday. So we'll see. We're probably going to do a bonus episode to review that arc and this last season.
It's got to be done.
It just how are we not going to do that? It's for you, the people. So I loved it, and I feel like Dave Filoni does a really good job of, hey, we're gonna talk about some cool clones. We're gonna do that for you Ahsoka fans. We're gonna build her up and give her a little bit more depth, but still tie in. And then he freaking swung for the dadgum fences with this last arc. And so far, these last 2 episodes have been fantastic. And so, thank you, Dave. I'm still waiting for them to give him a movie. Why the freak not? But anyways, so really great stuff. Next Friday, man, who knows? If it's even better, we may be back here again reviewing another episode. Who knows? Yeah, I think it's up there. I think if I had to go and look at a freaking list of 125 episodes or how many freaking long there is, I think this makes it into the top 5.
Yeah, for sure. Easily.
Top 5 for sure. Maybe top 3.
Top 3 for me, probably.
Maybe top 1, if you let it. Not arcs wise, just individual episodes.
Yeah.
So that gets dicey because you're like, what about this? More this episode. What about this one? But anyways, I really loved it. So if you guys have seen it, and there's things that we forgot or things that you're like, that was cool, but this really stood out to me.
We can't forget the blaster bolts being bent sideways.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Bo-Katan runs in and she's like, I'm going to take on this Dark Lord of the Sith. And you made a really great point. We were talking today and you said, people are sleeping on Maul. This dude, what he's been through, is a Sith master at this point.
Right.
Cast aside, survives purely by the strength of his will and his mind.
That bro casually turned blaster bolts into spaghetti.
She's shooting at him.
He turned them into macaroni. He bent them, bro.
First of all,
he didn't just deflect them. They were...
whenever you're sitting on the throne, you've got the Dooku's of the world who are like, I love it.
I liked that he was like...
My boy was slouching. Full on slouch. With one foot up here like our dad.
Disrespect.
And he was sitting there and with his hand on his knee and she's shooting at him and he's going, am I even in frame right now? He's like...
Well, it's funny because they're looking for him.
Then he picks her up.
They're freaking looking for him and he just shows up in front of him. He's like...
Good point.
You want this, don't you?
So, man, it was really good. I enjoyed it thoroughly. If you've seen it and you have, other thoughts, whatever, feel free to comment, like this video, subscribe to our channel. Follow us we have a Twitter now, so look us up, Chiss Ascendancy Podcast. Make sure we get our, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. And we'll see you guys next week, and then probably bonus episode that following Monday if we don't. Something crazy happened and we have a bonus episode before that. So, thank you guys for tuning in. May the Force be with you.
And remember...
The only family you have here is me.
See you guys next time.